You're listening to the 5-Minute Friday podcast episode of The Aligned Self. This is your host, Daniel J-N-O-V. Okay, 5-Minute Friday, a short and concise podcast episode of The Aligned Self, designed to leave you with a question, an idea, a strategy, a tip, a hack, in order to give you greater access to your conscious awareness, evolving your conscious awareness, or give you greater mastery over your mind. Hello, friend, and welcome into this 5-Minute Friday. You know, this topic of fear and intuition has been coming up again and again, and frankly, I did an episode on it 2 or 3 episodes ago, and it's still coming up. It's coming up in conversations with clients, new clients, old clients, and in different conversations that I happen into. So that tells me that maybe I need to address this, again, from a different angle. And frankly, it has been coming up in a different angle. People get an intuitive hit, and then they have fear in carrying it out. They have an urging, an impulse. They've been guided towards a particular direction. But when it actually comes to fulfilling on it and stepping fully into it, there's fear. And when we alleviate the fear, when we make a decision not to, there seems to be an alleviating of the fear. And so the thinking is that we're following our intuition into not going forward. Well, I can't speak to every instance, but more than often that is not the case. Your intuition is basically telling you or pointing you in a direction in the where you should go or could go in order to expand your experience of life, to fulfill on the questions you've been throwing out there. When the fear comes up, it means that we're not necessarily aligned. Our beliefs are not necessarily aligned yet with our intuitive guidance. And so when we think about taking action on our intuitive guidance, fear comes up, trepidation comes up, uncomfortableness comes up. As a human being, we have a natural orientation to living inside the comfort zone. Yet we know in our heart, we know in our mind that not leaving the comfort zone, we will never grow. In living inside the comfort zone, we tend to begin to stagnate. We start living smaller. But why is it that we're attracted to living in the comfort zone? And you need to recognize that as a human being, you are a spiritual being immersed in the human experience. And the condition of being human involves being both animal and spirit. You see, our body is our animal aspect. Yet in this same experience of life, we are also etheric. We are also spirit. So when fear comes up, that is our animal programming. Some aspect of where we're pointing our intention, and it could be intuitive intention, is saying, oh my God, that's not safe over there, or you could lose out. Yet when we were embracing the bliss of that intuitive guidance, it resonated with us. It felt right. And as we connected to the possibility that lies in moving ahead, we were enlivened. We were excited. Yet when we engaged our conscious mind, our animal mind, we began thinking about all the things that could go wrong. We started thinking of the potential danger, and the danger is anything that's outside our comfort zone. And because we default to the animal, because the animal will keep us safe, when we alleviate that fear, when we take our eyes off the prize, the fear will dissipate, and we think, oh, at least I don't have to go to that scary place. I lived this for years. When I was working at Federal Express as a courier and manager, to me, that position, that role that I played at FedEx was only meant to be a stepping stone experience, something that I, paid the bills while I got ready to immerse myself in my business. Now, for many years, when I was working at FedEx, I had my own office on the side. I saw clients in the nights and weekends. So I was had one foot in, one foot out, but I wasn't 100% committed yet. My intuition was always telling me to move out on my own, get out on my own. And I came very, very close several times to actually pulling the trigger, stepping forward, and cutting my ties with FedEx once and for all. But I would come up with fear when I thought about it, really thought about doing it. And then I would make the decision not to. And then I felt this relief. I felt like, oh, that wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right time because I had not aligned my beliefs with my values and my actions to move forward. And so there was a dissonance. I said I wanted to be out on my own, but I wasn't really preparing to be out on my own. I wasn't preparing to play a bigger game. And looking back on it, just stepping out and going off on my own would have been the catalyst to expand into a whole new way of being because I would have had to do it. But I took the slow route, and again, you're always on your path. You're never not on your path. Some roads are slower than others. I took the slow road. But I remember clearly the things that I would say to myself when I was entertaining cutting ties and moving forward. I would say things like, I'm not ready. Now's not the right time. When I thought about what I would really do, I'd come up with this thing in my head that said, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know exactly how I would go about it. And so because I didn't know exactly, that was an excuse to not move forward. I was giving in to the fear. I was giving in to the uncomfortableness. I wanted to alleviate that uncomfortable feeling. And so the decision not to move ahead, not to follow the urging, not to follow the impulse, that's where I went. While in hindsight, I can look back and say to myself, if I had taken action 5 years, 10 years earlier than I did, I would have been fine. I would have been more than fine. I would have moved faster forward into doing exactly what I wanted to do much earlier in life. And frankly, I would have avoided a whole lot of struggle in taking the detours and taking the slow route. But like I said, there is no right decision. You're either traveling slower than you could or you're moving faster. You're always on your path because you always have the feedback of your decisions and how you're being and looking at the results that you're creating in your life. Using that information as feedback to either course correct or keep going. And sometimes it's the realization that we had an intuitive guidance, we had an intuitive urge, and we didn't follow it. And with hindsight, we can look back and we realize that, oh, that was a choice point. That was a decision point that would have made a profound difference. And frankly, that's how I've learned to use my intuition to such a great degree, and that's in making a lot of mistakes. But I want you to avoid those mistakes if possible, and that's why I'm doing this episode. Well, okay, so what's the message here? If you move out in a direction, if you move out anywhere to the edge of your comfort zone or beyond your comfort zone, you are going to be uncomfortable. You are going to experience fear. It is not going to feel, even though you got the intuitive guidance and like the universe was giving you the nudge. If you're moving outside your comfort zone, if you're moving outside of the familiar, it's going to feel uncomfortable. There's going to be fear to some extent. But as I've often referenced in the firewalk experience, people make the decision to walk across hot coals. And I'm an instructor, and when I guide people across the coals, they're standing at the front of that bed, that 10 to 12-foot bed of coals, 1,200-degree coals. And sometimes you're standing there and you feel fear. Now, I only really know because of myself. I've done this hundreds of times, walk across the burning hot coals. And I realized that it's not the process, it's not actually walking across the coals that is the big deal. It's standing at the front of that bed and checking inside. Am I ready to take the first step? And I understand that if I'm experiencing fear, I began looking at what am I focusing on that brings up all this fear? Well, I was thinking about the temperature of the coals. I was thinking about falling on the coals. I don't know why I would think about walking, tripping, falling face first in this bed of hot coals. Because if I was really honest with myself, I walked all over the place and rarely ever fell. And just the fact that I was walking on hot coals shouldn't be any different. So it's checking in and recognizing that fear, I'm focusing on the worst case scenario. Once I focused on getting to the other side, once I aligned my body, my mind, and my heart with walking to the other side, of fulfilling on my intention, and then the fear would dissipate. And then I could check in truly with my intuition. And then I would get the impulse and lean forward. And then I would trust it, even when it was a whisper, and step into it. And once I took that first step, I just kept walking to the other side. And like I said before, your intuition does not use fear to communicate. It is all about possibility. It is all about what's possible, expansion. In fact, the intuitive guidance will be expansive in the feeling. When you connect with intuitive guidance, when you're on the right path, there's this expansive, open feeling. But when you're connected to the animal and you're in the fear of loss, when you're thinking in scarcity, you pull back. There's this feeling of contraction, pulling in tight, protecting yourself. This dichotomy of feelings points to the problem that a lot of people have in recognizing intuitive guidance, because they'll get the urge, they'll get the intuitive hit, they'll get the impulse to take action, to move forward in a new direction, and then they feel the fear. They doubt and question the guidance. Are you sure? And they'll keep asking for a sign. I need a sign. Can you give me another sign? And that trepidation in fully accepting, fully embracing your intuitive guidance is because you doubt that the universe has your back. It seems risky in trusting your intuitive guidance, and it seems risky in moving forward in a new direction. And again, that's because you're not used to traveling outside your comfort zone. You haven't yet found the feeling of comfortableness in feeling a little uncomfortable. And frankly, when you're really moving, engaged in life, you are always going to feel a little uncomfortable. It is going to feel like an adventure. And the reason it feels like an adventure is because you don't know exactly what lies around the corner. You don't know how tomorrow is exactly going to turn out. Because if you did, life would be boring. Frankly, for lack of a better word, it would be completely devoid of excitement. But it is those moments that we push the boundaries of our comfort zone where we feel most alive, most energized, most accomplished once we get on the other side of it. And yet, when you're on the front end of that decision, when you're right there standing in front of the coals, fear can come up. But it's checking inside. What am I focusing on? Am I focusing on the possibility, or am I focusing on the potential loss? And that reminds me of a quote that I just simply love. Ships are safe in the harbor. But that is not what ships were designed for. They were designed to sail the open sea. But there is risk in traveling to new lands. And while you will be safe staying in the harbor, you are not going to be engaged in any new discoveries. The unknown is the adventure. The intrinsic design of you as a human being is to expand, to grow, to move into new territories, new destinations. You are not meant to stay the same as you were yesterday, not live in the same ideas that you thought yesterday. So, my friend, if you want to live the big life, the big possibility for your life, you need to leave the harbor. You need to venture out into open seas. Don't be the person that held back when they got the urging early on. When I tell people in my firewalking workshops, learn to listen to your intuition when it is just a whisper. When you can take action on your intuition when it is just a whisper and trust it, then life begins to unfold like magic. There are no bumps in the road because that struggle comes when we go against our intuitive guidance and we think we know better. We want to take the safe route. And sometimes the safe route is your intuitive guidance. but you have to make that connection to what is guiding it. Is it fear or possibility? And I'm going to leave you with this one quote. For all sad words of tongue and pen, the saddest are these. It might have been. John Greenleaf Whittier. And then the words of Wayne Dyer. Don't die with your music still inside you. Well, that's it for this 5-Minute Friday. This is your friend and host, Daniel Denovi, urging you to follow your bliss. Live your life from inner signals. Be inner directed as you engage in the epic adventure.